Steph, how are we doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Welcome to Mastering Business Growth. This is the show where I speak with people who are running their own operations to find out what it really takes to run a business. So please, can we start with who you are and what you do?
Okay, so my name's Steph. I'm a chartered financial planner and I run my own financial advisory business.
Lovely. Why do you do that? Where'd that all start?
Completely by accident. I don't actually think I've ever met anyone in financial services who intended to be in financial services. Everyone
Right.
you talk to, for some reason or another, accidentally fell into it, whatever. But yeah, so I was, took a few years out from school and I was doing some temp work at a large bank. And then I moved to doing temp work at another large bank, and I was kind of between jobs just about a year before I was to go to university. And my mum worked at an IFA based in Newcastle, and there was a big change in regulation and they were kind of a little bit struggling to keep up with the work that needed to be done. So I got a phone call and she was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "What do you mean? I'm in bed." And she was like, "Right, get up, get ready. We need you. Can you come and just sit on reception? Because we need to pull the lady on reception to do the admin work." And I basically annoyed my way into a job. I'm not good at sitting still. I'm not good at just waiting for a phone to ring. So I basically started calling around all the departments being like, "Is there anything? Can I stuff envelopes? Can I do, like, what can I do while I'm sat here?" And yeah, they basically were like, "Okay, how about we just keep you on until you go to university?" And then about 10 days before I was due to go to university, I got a phone call from the managing director. I had never spoken to him before in my life. I was terrified. For some reason in my head, I was convinced he was going to be able to take all of the money that I'd earned over the summer off me, which was obviously not great for going to university. But no, I went into his office and he was like, "Don't go to university, stay here. We'll put you through whatever qualifications you want to go through, but you're an asset, so stay
That's
here."
amazing.
Yeah, it was great. And I stayed there for about 4 or 5 years, got my diploma in financial services. I do a lot of things because I'm petty. My brother has a degree. So I was like, well, I want similar level of qualifications. So I then went on to get my fellowship in financial advice. And I think at the time that put me in the top 2% of financial advisors nationally from a qualification point of view. And I got that when I was 26, so quite young as well.
That's amazing. So you fell into it. What made you stay? What do you like about it?
I was doing a lot of the investment analytics early doors, and I found that really fascinating. But when I started advising, you get to talk to people from all different walks of life, and you get to help people who maybe are in kind of rubbishy situations or just stressed and don't understand. And you can go, "Okay, don't worry about it, right? You tell me what you want to do, and the how, I'll deal with that. And we'll work that bit out together." And I get to sit down with people and they get to tell me about their weird hobbies and all those sorts of things. So it's great. It's a lot of fun. It's like, I love the analytics side of it, but I do enjoy talking to people and finding out what they do.
I got you. So you obviously work for yourself now.
Yeah.
What made you take that jump?
I was told I was fundamentally unmanageable.
Do you know what? You would not be the only business owner that is unmanageable. That's literally, it's a common trait. It's like a lot of people say we've all got some form of ADHD. We can't be told what to do. We need to do things our own way.
I'll absolutely do what anyone tells me to do as long as you can tell me why I'm doing it. If you're telling me to check a box, but you can't tell me why I need to check the box, then the box doesn't need to be checked. So why am I wasting my time?
Was it like a point of tension? Like, I can't work with you anymore? Or was
No.
Right.
So I'd kind of grown to a point where I'd done as much as I could, left the first company, had a couple of other jobs. I was at a point where I either stayed somewhere 6 months or like 4 years. It was kind of that thing. And I got my fellowship, started advising at a great company, learned exactly how to do my job there. Have not got a bad word to say about them. But I was struggling to grow anymore because there were older advisors. I was the youngest by a significant margin. There's only a handful of women in the industry anyway. So I was just kind of seen as the baby, and it's hard to get past that. So I went into a next business. I was there for 6 months and I didn't like it. And I happened to have a phone call with someone who was the one that said, "Look, it sounds like you're fundamentally unmanageable. So why are you trying to work in a world where people need to manage you? Why don't you do this by yourself?" And it means that I get to do the right thing for my client every time, as opposed to, not to say that any business that I work for didn't, but it just means that I can do what I need to do for them.
Do you know, you are so right. And again, this is something I've spoken with other people about. The whole, when you are working in teams, you might have, you have to have the exact same vision. The bigger the team, the more diluted it gets, the more people are, trying to run their own operation. Yeah. They have to go, you hear it particularly in things like police and whatnot, that they have to go against their own morals and values. And I wonder what's the deal with that in terms of, I guess if you're working for someone else, do you ever have to do things where you go, it's maybe not ethical to tell them to invest in that? Or
I would never. I would never kind of work in that way. And I guess that's probably part of why I don't really work in a
Do people work in that way in your field though?
I don't think they think it's unethical, and I don't think we have a very strong, in financial services, it's not Wolf of Wall Street anymore.
Yeah.
We literally can't work like that, because if we do, we get found out so quickly and you're out. So it can't work that way.
What is the punishment?
They basically just say, well, you have to be registered with the PFS and with the FCA. So if you are ever looking for financial advisors, you need to make sure they're on the FCA register. But yeah, so if you do anything wrong, they'll just pull you. Every year we have to do a fit and proper, which is have you done, your 35 hours of CPD this year? Have you, had any, we have to submit bank statements, we have to submit credit card statements, what are they called? Credit reports every single year, to make sure that we're not in a position where we can be taken advantage of, and that there's not suddenly loads of money that can't be explained, because that's obviously an issue. So
do you think it would be easy in your position to milk certain financial gains?
No.
Even if you weren't being checked?
If you weren't being checked, maybe.
Even if people aren't there doing that?
I don't no, because you have to be checked. You have to submit your returns to the FCA every single year. So it's a lot stricter. You do get people who are maybe not as personable, and when you're sitting down with people who are like, I just don't know what to do, you need that. You need to be able to say, look, it's my thing that I always say to clients is look, you've done the best you can with the information you've had, and you've made the best decision for you right at that time. All I am is just more information. And I can tell you how to get where you want to go, and you can trust me to get you there. And if it, I don't have a crystal ball, neither do you, but if anything falls off, we can fix it. But it's just that constant, checking in, I guess.
Well, that brings up a really good point. Why would someone work with you to figure out what to do with their money, as opposed to going on the infinite resource that is Google? I mean, the obvious one is that too much information. Everyone's got an opinion.
Yeah.
A lot of people are wrong, and you don't know who you're listening to.
Yeah, I guess that's the main one. I am very passionate about understanding exactly what's going on. I could talk, it would sound Swahili to you, talking the regulations and the rules around all the different investment types. And it's not about that. The what is kind of irrelevant. I sit down with people and go, okay, where do you want to be? What do you want your life to look like? Tell me about that. What hobbies do you want? When do you want your mortgage paid off? When do you want to retire? When do you want, whatever it is, tell me about that. And once I know that, I can tell you where to put your money, how to go about it, and how to get there. So you can go online and you can use the self-investment platforms and you can do all of that. But if I asked you, how much do you think you'll need to live on when you no longer work, would you be able to answer that question? Yeah, no,
I don't know anything about investing really. I've looked into a little bit, spoken to a few people who do it. It's not something I've dipped my toes in yet, and I wouldn't know where to start. But I do, going back to what you said a minute ago, if you go on your LinkedIn, it's helping people do more of the things they love. And that is a really good way to think about money, as opposed to just, some people just kind of feel like they should be doing it, but they don't really know why.
My friends, I have a friend who calls them comfort points.
Right.
That money's just comfort points. And you get beyond a certain point and it's all just, you can use it for whatever. I think we have a very strange relationship with money, and budgeting and things like that. And people hate the word budget in the same way that they hate the word diet. But I always say, look, if you eat food, you have a diet. If you spend money, you have a budget. If you know where you're spending it, you're in control of it. But if you get to the end of the month and go, then it's kind of controlling you.
Yeah, can't leave it to chance, can you?
Exactly.
No. So again, someone who doesn't really know much about this, give me a total overview. What exactly do you do? What services? So you help people with investing, pensions? Just walk me through it.
Literally across the board. So I can do anything from life insurance, pensions, investments, trusts, tax vehicles. There's all sorts of different things that we can do. The only thing I don't personally do is mortgages. And that's just because I don't do them every single day, and the time it takes to know that, this provider needs this documentation and that provider needs that documentation. I'd rather hand that over to a mortgage specialist, but I can do income protection, mortgage protection, any kind of life insurance, investments, pensions, ISAs, junior ISAs, junior pensions. People don't realise you can have pensions for kids as well, which is wild to me.
No, and I actually saw it on the My Continuum website. I didn't know that was a thing.
Well, it's just the same way. So as an adult, or anyone who's not working for a pension, you can put into a pension £3,600 a year, including your tax relief. So you would put in £2,880 and that would gross up. You can do exactly the same for an infant. Newborn baby, you can set up a pension for them.
Do people ever do it and try and yoink the money?
You can't.
Right.
You can't. So because it's in a pension wrapper, it cannot be accessed until the person whose pension it is reaches currently age 55. It would be 57 in April 2028 because that's going up. But yeah, so you can't, it's in there and it's locked away unless something happened to the person, and then it would go through inheritance.
What's your bread and butter then? What do you do most of?
It's a lot of pensions.
Yeah. Is it fun?
I love it.
Right.
Well, you get to sit down with people and go, okay, you can stop working then. And they're like, what?
Yeah, that's amazing.
The other side of it's like, okay, you can't stop working. We need to start saving. Come on.
Yeah. So you deal with a lot of people where you get to present this amazing news and they're like, oh, that's great.
Yeah. And you get to save all this tax.
Yeah.
And you get to do, everything you already want to do. I've got a lot of younger clients. And I think because I think the most recent statistic I saw was 75% of financial advisors are looking to retire in the next 5 to 10 years. So
is that based on a certain age demographic? Right.
Yeah. there's a certain age demographic. So I'm definitely one of the younger advisors. Yeah. Even though I'm not as young as I was when I started, certainly have a few more grey hairs than I did. I think that's being self-employed though.
Yes.
But yeah, so there's a lot of younger people who are sitting there just going like, I'm 20, I'm 30. I don't know where to start. I don't know how much I should be putting in to be able to retire when I want to retire. So I love sitting down and working with these people and going, okay, and now we're going to be putting this much in, but you're going to get this much tax relief. And then you also, sorry to give you another job, but you have to do a tax return. But in doing that tax return, you're also going to get more money back, which you can then put into your pension and then get more tax relief. And it kind of creates a cycle.
And you could just get an accountant to do your tax return.
Exactly.
That's what we do. I don't have to think about this stuff.
Exactly. And I work with accountants, so I can just kind of go.
Okay. So let's talk about business development.
Okay.
How do you go about getting your work?
So financial advisors, the most common way we do it is there's a portal online. It's called Unbiased. People put their queries in and then we can basically tender for that query, that information. So that's one. I do a lot of networking. But to be fair with networking, it feels less like business development to me. And it's like I sit in the house by myself all day. I get to go out and I get to chat to people. I've made some really good friends off doing networking. And I know, as and when the time comes, their pensions, they'll have a chat with me about them. So
that's what I find with almost everyone that I've spoken to on this podcast. They don't believe in business development, really. It's all about relationships and who you meet, and you never know. I guess particularly in your world where your, target audience can be anyone who's looking to put their money somewhere. And who do you find? Because in my head, knowing not much about it, you'd assume it's mostly older people who've maybe got more money that they don't need it, really, or like, what should I do with it? But you're finding like a bunch of 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds are now starting to think, well, do you know what? I should really be investing. I've heard investing's good.
Yeah. I think with networking, even with social media as well, I set up my Instagram page purely because I just wanted people to get the right information from a reputable source rather than some random dude talking about things he shouldn't be talking about. But yeah, I just wanted that kind of reputable source. And because off the back of that, people are going, oh, okay, I need to do that. But it's becoming more part of the the lexicon. People are talking about money more. People are talking about what they should do and what they need to do to be able to have the life they want. You know, the cost of living crisis has definitely put this into finer focus for everyone. And where people can, and I mean, don't get me wrong, if you know anyone with a few £1 million who needs a financial advisor, I will absolutely help them. But I find it really exciting sitting down with people my age going, right, what do you want? What do you want your life to look like? How do you want to build that? Is this your final home? Are you moving? Do you want to move abroad? Like, what do you want to do? And you get to sit down with young people who then, like, they're very, like, pie in the sky kind of thing. And it's great because the sooner you start, the more potential you've got to be able to get there. And you've got a wider kind of playground to kind of figure out, I guess.
I got you. Do you find that people often misunderstand how much money they need to start investing?
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
It's always a conversation of like, oh, well, you know, I'll figure it out later. And it's like, well, why? And I think part of the problem, as I said, the demographic of financial advisors are significantly older, you know, looking to retire. So they maybe don't want to deal with people who are building wealth, potentially. That's not to say that they won't, but they potentially don't. And it's harder to get that. And a lot of places I've worked have had fairly significant minimum investment values.
What sort of numbers are you talking for that kind of thing?
£30,000 has kind of been the lowest that I've seen. But, you know, if you want an annual review, you're looking £100,000 plus, which is obviously quite significant to someone who's starting. But because I am basically the age of the people that I'm working with, I'm like, yeah, we'll start you off. We'll start you off with what you can do now. And, you know, we'll see how that gap fills. And if we need to put more in, we can put more in. But obviously, I'm hopefully going to have these clients for 20, 30 years.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Because you might start with someone and like they go, I don't know, I can part ways with a few £100 a month or something, and it starts that way, and you might go, there's not really much success story to tell here yet. But have you ever seen anything start that low and compound into something notable?
Yeah, I'm working with like a bunch of people who are doing that now. It's great. It's great to see because and oftentimes, I mean, even my other half, like, when we got together and we started investing, like we started off really sort of £50 a month.
Yeah.
Like we started off really small, and then it's like, I'm not missing that money. Like it doesn't hurt after it. Like the first month you may be like, oh, I can't get that takeaway, that's rubbish. But then the next month you've forgotten that you had it because it comes out straight away. You're not having to do it. It just goes. It's another bill. And then you go, okay, well, I can put that at £75. That's not much difference. I can do that. You put it up to £75 and so on and so forth. And like slowly over time, you're putting a few £100 a month into your pension or into your investments or into whatever it happens to be. And you're building that, and it's great to see.
Where would someone start for something that low? I know you can't give specific advice, but let's say me, never invested in my life. Where would someone like me start?
So it very much depends on what you're looking at and what you're hoping to get. And that's kind of why you need to have that conversation.
What if you don't know what you're hoping to get? What if, because for me, I suppose if we're being technical, I do invest in my own company, in my own equipment, in things like that. But not like a classic form of investment. It's more of I'll make this better so I can charge my customers more and stuff like that, which is a form of investing.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't know what to expect in terms of just investing money into stocks, things like that.
Okay. So if we roll it back, why do you put more money in your business?
So I can provide a better service and give people better results, then charge more, and then ultimately grow my wealth.
Okay. So why do you want to grow your wealth? What do you want to do once you're earning more?
Earn some comfort points, as you said. And, you know, it's like there was an interview I did last week with these two guys, Dave and Sue, and they were talking about the same thing, getting people to work out their why. Why are you in business? And it was interesting because there's two ways of looking at that. There's why am I in business for me personally, and then what do you do for the outside world? Because people don't care what you're doing for you. 100%. They care what you can give them. Yeah. But they said in terms of the personal goals, it's never to make money. It's to buy choices.
Yes.
And that's all it is. You know, what do you want money for? You go one more. I want to be able to say, do you know what? I'm going to go away for a week with my wife. Yeah. I'm going to, I don't know, take a few days off. I want to eat there tonight. It's choices.
Absolutely.
So ultimately, that's your answer. Want more choices. Okay. Want more freedom to say, cool, I feel like working today, and that's fortunate because it's Monday. But I'd like to be able to say, I'm having a crap day.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it.
Fair enough.
And yeah, I can to a degree. But you know what I mean? Like, you don't have that much runway as a small business owner.
No.
So yeah, ultimately that's the reason why build the company, buy more comfort points.
Buy more comfort points, buy more choices. So that's absolutely it. So you've got a couple of things that would work for you. You've got, you could absolutely invest more in your business because then that pushes you further. But then you've got, some people come to me and they really just don't want to pay any tax or as little tax as possible. And I get that. Like, fine, we pay a lot of money.
No one wants to.
Yeah. There's a great quote with everything that's changed with inheritance tax. It's a Formula Chancellor, and he says that inheritance tax is a voluntary levy paid by those who distrust their beneficiaries more than they dislike the revenue. And
Interesting.
I'm like, because you can plan around that. It's great. So for me...
Is that something you can talk about on camera?
Yeah, there's loads of things. So if you can make gifts, gifts fall outside of your estate. If you made a big gift, they fall outside of your estate after 7 years. You can insure against inheritance tax, but gifting, I talk about, you can do something called a regular gift out of income. So as long as you're not putting yourself in a position where you're having to draw capital, which is the original investment thing.
So effectively making money profiting from something.
Yeah. So if you've got a child or a grandchild or a best friend or a dog shelter that you love or whatever, and you want to reduce the value of your estate, you can gift a regular amount every month or every year, and that's classed as an inheritance tax.
Therefore reducing the value. That is amazing. Wow.
It's one of those things. We've lost one of our tools because pensions are now since the last budget that's just happened, they've brought pensions back into their estate and they need to figure out how they're going to do that because there's several different things that fall into play there. So we've lost one of our tools, but there are other things we can use to keep to minimise the amount of tax.
That's something I actually wanted to ask you about. Has your world turned upside down, or the way you operate, has that changed at all since the recent budget?
I thought it was really boring.
Right. Because everyone's crapping themselves. Like, oh my God, I mean, particularly like farmers, that's a new thing. Whereas is it like inheritance tax over $1 million or so? I can't remember the numbers. But then, capital gains tax is one. And everyone's, again, crapping themselves because a lot of people start companies purely to exit and make their money that way.
Yeah.
So is there an easy workaround for stuff like that?
There's ways and means. It's not, you can't carte blanche say like, yeah, we'll get around it completely, but there are ways and means. There's other investments you can use that can mitigate, capital gains or postpone them. You can phase things, so you can use this year's capital gains tax allowance and next year's and potentially the years after. Yeah, if you phase the sale of your business, so if you had someone buy in, every 12 months for 4 years, you can use 4 tax years, potentially 5 tax years allowances.
Are you shocked? Because I wouldn't have known that. And apparently a lot of people that are kicking off on LinkedIn about it obviously don't know it too, because they wouldn't be so sad otherwise.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's one of those things we don't talk about it. And it's like when people sell their business, they don't necessarily want to be still involved with their business for the next 4 years. If you're looking to sell, you want out, you want to go on holiday, you want your choices, you want your comfort points. But there are ways you can kind of phase it.
Right.
Because you're selling part of it. If you sell 25% and then 25% and 25% and 25%, that's happening over a period. You just have to have the right contract in place.
I got you. So I want to kind of went off topic a bit now. I was curious about how you get customers and whatnot. Okay, yeah. So, but again, it's all about relationships then. Yeah.
I've been at networking events where there's a great one that I used to love to go to. It was speed networking, and you would have 10 minutes around a table and you basically had 2 minutes to talk about yourself. And there was one time in particular, there was me and 2 or 3 other financial advisors all sat at the same table, which is fun. But one of the chaps who wasn't a financial advisor said, okay, Steph, why should I use you rather than whoever? And I said, if you feel like you can talk to me and you can tell me whatever it is you need to tell me, then you should use me. But if you feel like I don't know, John. If you feel like you can talk to John easier, talk to John. It's not about, like, there's about 5,000 financial advisors nationally. There's not a huge amount of us.
That is a lot less than I thought it would be.
I think it's 5,000.
Does that help keep you in business?
Well, I mean, I guess so. People want to talk to people, right? And you want to talk to someone who's not going to make you feel uncomfortable. Yeah. So for me, I always say to people, if you want to talk to someone who makes you feel like it's your dad and they're going to tell you off, go and talk to someone else. If you want to talk to someone who is just going to tell you, yeah, do what you want, but if you want to do this, this is the right path. That's kind of the tact I take. I always sit down with people and ask what's more important than spending all of the money they have today. What's more important than that? And that's kind of where you start.
Do you know, because you think about financial advisors, your immediate thoughts, like you say, might have been like an older dude, for example. Yeah. And it's like...
I mean, generally I walk into a room and I am one of the few women and definitely one of the youngest.
Well, that's saying it's you don't think about that so much, where it's like you do want to be comfortable with these people, because it's... Some people are probably dropping their entire life savings into something, and you need to be comfortable about it. It seems... In my head, it would be more of like an analytical thing, and someone going, well, look, if you put this money in there, and I guess it's not about that, but I didn't really think about that until you just said.
Yeah, I mean, it's both. It's both. I mean, for me, I work for my clients. I always start from very, very much from scratch every single time. So I'm going to the drawing board and I'm doing the research myself because I'm a control freak. Yeah. There are, we have something called paraplanning, which is basically like I could hand all of that off to someone else, but I've sat down with, I don't know, Mr. Smith. I know exactly what he wants. I know when he wants to, stop working. I know what holidays he wants to go on. I know that he's got a daughter that he wants to put through university. I know all of that. And I have that emotional connection.
It matters so much more than people realise. We did a thing a while ago. We took someone on as like a sort of part-time consultant or whatever. And jumping into conversations from pre-existing relationships that we had, and it's hard. It didn't work.
Because it's like, but I've just told, or like you get a report back, because every financial advice, there's 5 stages to the process, and about halfway through, you get your report. And we go through the report, and the report will have a whole section that's like, you told me that this was your dog's name, and this is what you wanted, and da-da-da-da. And it's all about what we talked about in our meeting. So if I hand that off to someone else, even if I type it all out and it's like it comes back and there's just something missing.
It's the same as like when people get passed around doctors. And it's like, I've already done my bloods. It's like, oh, have you? I didn't say here. It's like, does no one have a clue what's going on?
Yeah.
I imagine, in that world in particular, if you're about to, I don't know, send off 100 grand or whatever to some particular investment, and it's like, where's so-and-so speaking with? It doesn't really work that way, does it? People aren't going to like that.
And I mean, I would always be the one that comes back. The advisor is always the one that comes back to you, but there's something a little bit more clinical, in my personal opinion. It's not to say anything about any paraplanners. There's some absolutely phenomenal ones out there. I've worked with some of them in the past and they're brilliant, and they can take what I've written and turn it into something that's really, really great. But just being self-employed, I'm just like, I know I can turn that around and I can get it back and I can do a good job. So, because I've done it all. I was a paraplanner, I was an administrator, I've done every part of this job.
So you can keep your finger on the pulse sort of externally.
Yeah, absolutely.
That makes sense. Do you ever feel like people are sort of sussing you out and like just getting to know you a bit better before they pull the trigger on some kind of big investment or whatever?
Yeah.
How long does it take until someone's like comfortable?
Sometimes I can go out to a client meeting. So the first part of the stage is to develop a professional relationship. So that's why you get all your documents and all of that. But actually, it starts as soon as you get the inquiry, or as soon as you meet the person. You're kind of making sure you feel comfortable with whoever it is you're talking to. I've had that take a day. I've also had it take 6 months.
Yeah.
And it very much depends, and all of it's fine. I would much rather whoever's coming to me is 100% sure that I'm the person, I'm going to, look after them and they're comfortable with me, than for them to feel rushed. And that, like, if I don't do it now, I'm like, yeah, it's fine. We'll come back to it in 6 months. It's fine. If you want to, like, I can help.
Yeah.
If you don't want my help, that's fine. But
do you ever find you have like really messy sort of boundaries there where people are sort of tricking you into giving them advice?
All the time.
How do you define that? Do you have like mid-conversation like, oh yeah, well I guess I do. Like, wait a minute, no, we need to sit down and I'm billing you for this if I tell you. You have to like catch yourself.
I mean, more often than not, guidance, like a lot of what we've talked about today would be considered guidance and information. It's like technical kind of.
What is the cutoff?
Anything where I'm telling you to do something personally.
Got you.
That's kind of the cutoff. And the easiest way in the world to do that is I know nothing about your financial situation right now.
Yeah.
So if you would ask me how much you need to retire on,
yeah,
I have no idea.
Yeah.
How long's a piece of string? Like, I don't, if you want to sit in the house and eat ramen all day, like that's a completely different lifestyle to going on
I kind of do.
Yeah, I love ramen.
It's
like,
good,
you know, the like really 69 pence packet noodles.
Yeah. So
I don't
good.
know why I love them so much, but
just
I really
delicious.
do. But that's a completely different lifestyle and a completely different, you know, poundage to wanting to go on 2 6-month cruises a year and be able to buy your children houses each. Like there's a lot of wiggle room in between. So it's very easy to go, well, I get a lot of what should I invest in? Like what investment should I choose? And I'm like,
how broad of a question is that? Because that is the kind of thing I would ask.
It's huge.
But I don't know how stupid it is.
There's thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of different investments and all different risk levels and all different, you know, different things in this. And it's like, I don't know off the top of my head. I have to take your information to create something that funnels all of that down into a manageable size to then start doing the research and figuring out of that list of however many funds or investments or whatever, what would be the best for you.
I got you. Do you think you have a wild advantage as a very young person and you can learn from everyone's mistakes over the years and ultimately end up a billionaire?
Oh, I'd love to be a billionaire. Actually, I don't need to be a billionaire. I don't need that much.
Do you have like a solid plan in mind, just based on the way you work, what you do every day, what you see people doing, and you know what you need, and you know how you're going to get there?
Yeah. Fairly, yeah.
Yeah. Is it a long-term plan?
Yes. The thing is, I love my job. I love my clients. I have to send them birthday cards. I love that. And I'm like, I've got that personal relationship with them. And I would never want to have them feel like they're left. If I won the lottery tomorrow, I would probably still be working.
Oh, yeah, me too. Yeah.
At least until I could train someone up and I knew I could trust that person to look after my people, because they're my people now. Like, I care about them. I want to make sure they're hitting their goals. From an advantage point of view, I feel like there's certainly times where I have conversations and I'm very highly qualified in my industry. Most people get diploma level. I'm at fellowship level and I'm currently working. I've got one more exam that I just need to get through, which will give me effectively a master's in finance, which most people don't do. And that's just because, again, I do a lot of things out of pettiness and my brother doesn't have a master's. So,
do you know what I was going to say? Obviously, you must have a real deep sense of, you know, for doing as well as you have in this. It's like, is it pettiness or is it like, is it truly just, I mean, a lot of people, you have to have, say if you won the lottery tomorrow, you keep working anyway. And I have a similar thing, an invested interest in the results my clients get, just interested in it. It's purpose really, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I joke, like, yes, part of it is absolutely. But I've also, being a young woman in finance, I've been told I can't do this. I won't be able to do this.
You've been like outright told to your face.
I've been outright told to my face that I will not succeed in doing what I'm doing.
Who said what? Name them, shame them.
Oh. No, because I don't want to give them the publicity.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because when you do succeed, they're the first person to jump on and be like, see? And it's like,
see?
Excuse me? And, you know, it's interesting. Like I'm generally, you walk into a room with like full of advisors. I'm one of the few women and you get comments. I was at the Women in Finance Awards last week because I was nominated as a finalist for the Financial Advisor of the Year for the Northeast. And someone turned around and said, well, it would be easier for me to be nominated if I was a woman. And it's like,
why was that? Or what was the theory behind that?
Because special treatment, I think.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, sure, yeah. Yeah, you don't get to feel uncomfortable in a room just because you're one of the few women in there. And it doesn't bother me on a day-to-day basis. Like, I don't think like that, but when you're met with things like that, you're just a bit like...
No, and I guess it shouldn't bother you. Have you ever found any kind of prejudice from clients or you've had to prove yourself in that respect, or people just happy with the results?
The funny thing is, when you're saying about advantages earlier, like the funny thing is, because I am a young person, take the woman out of it, because I'm a young person, my qualifications started after major regulatory changes in the UK. I don't know how to do it wrong because I've not been allowed to. I've never, I have to do my job well, and I have to do it to a certain standard because we've had the retail distribution review, which basically changed the way we get paid. So I've never been paid off of commission. I get paid by my clients to do a job. So there's no, we'll go with this one because they give me a bit more.
Yeah.
It's always, well, this is the fee, and if you're going to pay the fee, then I'll do the work. But if you're not, then I won't.
Is that standard? Because I spoke to someone a while ago, financial advisors, and they basically just took, it was exactly that, commissions. It's like a percentage or whatever.
So it's not right. So it is a percentage.
Yeah.
But it's not commissions. It's coming from your, so if I was talking to someone with a large investment and they were wanting to come under my purview, it would be charged as a percentage of the investment value, but it's them paying the fee. It can either be from the investment itself, or you can pay it, out of your pocket, but it's not, it's you're paying it. It's not the provider paying it. And that's what commission was at one point. So it was all built in and under the bonnet and you couldn't really see it. So we have to be very, very explicit now. We have to tell you everything, which is great. And I think we absolutely should. But yes, it is a percentage more often than not. I do have an hourly rate if it's not product-based. So if you just want a cash flow to understand what's coming in, what's going out and where your space is, then we can do that too. But yeah, it's so from my point of view, I have that advantage. It's I don't know how to do it that way. I only know how to do it this way, and this is the right way to do it.
I got you. So, no, that's great. That makes perfect sense. There was something we were talking about before we started shooting. It's just crossed my mind again. What are some classic, almost famous or common dipshit beliefs that people have about investing? Because again, everyone thinks they have an opinion when it comes to investing. I'm confident enough to say I don't know what I'm talking about, but you must know so many things where you're that is wrong. Why is everyone saying that? Yeah. What are some common myths, let's say? I
mean, common myths and common misconceptions is, first of all, that financial services and people who work in them, it's all Wolf of Wall Street, and we're all on the stockroom floor shouting at each other. That's a very small part of finance. It does happen, but that's not really what we do. And as I say, the regulation thing, a lot of people are, I actually have a review from a client who was a lovely woman. She actually said, I've worked with financial advisors before and I was dreading this meeting. And I read that and I was like, this is a 5-star review. What? And then it was but I couldn't have been more wrong, Steph da-da-da. And I was like, oh, that's really nice. If you get a good financial advisor, they're going to, I don't want to be smarter than you. I want you to know what I know. Too much sometimes. I get very excited and I talk a lot. But yeah, so that's one thing. Another thing that people don't realise is if you are a higher rate taxpayer and you are making pension contributions, you potentially need to be filling in a tax return, even if you're paid and you pay your tax PAYE. Because if you're paying pension contributions after you've been taxed, so you're not doing it through salary sacrifice, you're only getting 20% tax relief and you need to be claiming that additional back. So people don't realise that. And then there's other things where people talk about very specific versions of an investment as if they're the whole thing, the hot tub jacuzzi kind of thing. No. So a jacuzzi is a hot tub, but not all hot tubs are jacuzzis. It's the brand.
Right.
So pensions is a big one. People talk about SIPs a lot, and a SIP is a type of pension, but not all pensions are SIPs.
Yeah,
it's broader than that. And people talk about, I see a lot of accountants who are doing great work because they're talking about finances online, but they talk about SIPs, and I'm like, can you just say the word pension? Because it's the same. SIPs are very specific. And it's confusing for people because they come to me and they go, I need a SIP. And I'm like, why do you need a SIP? And they're like, well, because of this. And I'm like, you just need a pension.
Do you ever find that you are translating in real time with people? Because again, people will pick up certain words. So a bit of background on me, worked in music for 10 years.
Yeah.
And that was a thing. So people come back oh, can we have more echo on this or whatever? It's
Reverb.
Yeah, reverb, for example. Yeah, it's one version of echo, let's say. And it's like, what do you actually mean? So you have to dig deeper and really try and figure things out. Like what are they actually trying to say? Oh, can we make this sound bigger? It's like, define bigger. Where do we start?
Just loud? We'll turn it up.
More in your face, like... Again, like stronger compression. What are we talking about? You know what I mean? So do you ever have to like figure things out on the fly and you like have misconceptions or people you misunderstood what someone meant?
100%. There's oftentimes people come and they have a very clear plan in their head about what they want and what they need. And
or they tell you how to do it.
They tell me how to do it. It's like going to a mechanic and saying, I want a square tire on my car. And it's like, tell me why. Or like they need a certain amount in their pension is a big one. My brother did that. He was like, I need this much money in my pension. And I was like, why? And he was like, what do you mean? And I was like, well, why that much money? Where did you pull that number from? And he thought about it and he went, it's just a good number, isn't it? And I'm like, you're not wrong, but you don't need, like, we worked it out and it was significantly lower what you actually needed. And I was like, so if you'd been gunning for that number and we hadn't done the maths, you would have been sacrificing so much now just to hit that number in 30 years.
Do you think anyone can start with, let's say, shit all and end up with $1 million in, let's say, 50 years? Right?
I've done the maths on this actually, and as we were saying earlier, you can actually have a pension for a child. So in theory, if you were to max out a child's pension, so it's £240 a month, would give you £300 a month because you get the tax relief. Between ages like birth and age 18, you would be out of pocket £51,000, okay, as a parent or as grandparents or whoever. I can't remember the rate of return that I used, but assuming, a sensible rate of return between then and retirement age.
How sensible are we talking? Like 6%?
6%, yeah. I think that was it. I think it was 6%. Between then and retirement age, so 60, I think I said 60. I can do the math. I've got it somewhere. But basically, if no one touched it, no one put another penny in that from £51,000, from £240 a month, which... I mean, I don't have children, but I'm sure if you do have children, that's easily gone on, I don't know.
Just Roblox.
Like Lego.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be great. Anyway, but yeah, if you put that much money into a pension and you left it, by the time they were 60 or retirement, it might have been 67, they would have nearly £2 million in their pension.
Whoa.
The amount of money is not important. The time that you have to invest it is. Obviously, the more you put in, the more that compound interest can work for you.
So what you're saying is start now.
Yeah. The best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time is today.
Yeah, of course. Wow. Saying that, what's the 2 million in 60 years going to be worth? Will it be the modern day 10 grand?
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing. But it's better for them to have that then and for it to be worth significantly less now. But, and that's also assuming a very linear level of growth. You're going to have higher rates of return than that some years and lower rates of return. So it's
how much of this is like art versus data?
It's kind of a blend.
Yeah.
So the data, you're always going to be backwards looking. There's no, like if I had a crystal ball, I promise you I would never have started working. I promise you I would have bought, if I could go back and tell my, 10-year-old self when I first watched Forrest Gump, you know how he's talking about Apple? Buy Apple shares. Do that now.
Yep.
Or even Bubba Gump Shrimp is a thing, isn't it? Like it's a company.
Is it a real thing? I think it is in
America. I'd be like, buy into that. Just buy whatever.
Yeah.
I promise you I wouldn't be working if I could do that.
No, you would though, because work forces you to develop better personal qualities.
True. I mean, no, if I was 12 and someone told me to buy Apple shares and I was a millionaire by like 20 or whatever, the maths would work out. Like I don't think I would care about being a 20-year-old with that much money. Probably not sure is a great idea.
Asking for trouble, isn't it?
Yeah.
You learn how to be a little shit.
Which is why I say to people, like, are you sure you want an aid? Because if you use an ISA, junior ISA, for example, for your child, at age 18, they have full access to that. You cannot control that anymore. So that means if you max that out, I think, again, I did the maths on that. You max that out, it's £9,000 a year at current rates. By the time they are 18, I think that's about $250,000 they'd have. I know if I was given £250,000 at age 18, I probably wouldn't be here today. I certainly wouldn't have bought a house.
Nah, you'd turn it into Bex.
Yeah, exactly. So it's that kind of balance, right? But yeah, a lot of it's finding the understanding of like, okay, what is it that you're looking to do? You know, what is it you want for your child? Is it that you want them to have the freedom to have this money? No, probably not. You know, a lot of grandparents are like, I saw my child go
It's like, yeah, if you train them to want to start a business, for example, and then, you know, they hit 18 and they're like, right, I've had this awesome idea. I've been, you know, thinking about it for 3 years and, you know, I've been, you know, meeting people, building this network. If only I had £250,000, you know, it'd be a good time to have
by the way.
Yeah. But that's rare. I don't think many people would do that.
No.
Well, I'll tell you what, I do want to bring this to an end pretty soon. So just quickly, can you walk me through what it looks like? Let's say someone's decided, right, I want to start investing money, don't have a clue, but they know who you are and they know that you're the right person to speak to.
Yeah.
Just walk me through the process.
So you'd have to reach out. Obviously, GDPR means that you'd have to let me know that you exist. But yeah, you reach out, we have a conversation. I'll gather a lot of information about you. But from
things that you wouldn't have thought you'd need.
Yeah, like obviously the usual name, date of birth, address kind of thing, that stuff. But it's also really, really helpful to know your spending habits now. So you're quite young. If I asked you how much you needed to live on in retirement, would you have any idea? No?
Nope.
But what I can do is I can take what you're spending now and go, well, your mortgage will probably be paid off and you may not be going to work, but you may want to, you know, go on holiday or whatever. And we can use what you're spending now as a framework. It'll change and we'll develop that, but it's a good place to start. So yeah, having a breakdown of your expenditure is really helpful. We'll gather all of that. I'll look at it and I'll be able to come out and pretty much fairly early be able to say, yes, you're on track. You don't actually need my help. There you go. Toodaloo. Or, okay, we need to do some work here and kind of this is very high level what we may need to do. What is it that you're looking to do? What do you want your life to look like? Tell me about your goals, your dreams, your hopes, your family life, your home life, like whatever. Tell me about everything.
The people ever have to like wildly bring it back in sort of thing and stop going to Vegas every 2 months and all that.
I mean, I've never actually met anyone that goes to Vegas every 2 months, but I've never met anyone.
Sam knows someone.
I've never met anyone who's so wildly unaware of that. Like, I think people who are doing things like that, when they come to the point of like, hey, I need some advice, it's because they've come to the realization of I'm spending everything I'm earning right now and I don't want to have to work forever, because that's ultimately what it is, whether it's retirement or whether it's the choices or whether it's starting your own business or buying a house or whatever it is. It's you need to have space. You can't do that with nothing. So you need to create space in your budget to be able to start doing that. And people tend to come to me when they've realized that. There's been 1 or 2 times where I've sat down with someone and just said, look, what you're looking at, it doesn't work. But if we do this, it works. Or if we do this, it works. Or if we push it back by 2 years, it works. And there's always ways and means. So that would be kind of the high level conversation. Then I'd go away and start doing all of that lovely research.
What does the research involve? Just looking for things to invest in?
It's everything from what investment wrapper should we use? Because that's what a pension and an ISA and a general investment account and a bond is. It's just how are they taxed? It's the same as like my glass and your mug. You can put water in this and you can put water in that, but what they do is slightly different. So then I go away and kind of start figuring out, well, if we use this is the benefit. And if we use that, that's the benefit. And this is why should we use X over Y? And I'll come back with all of that information, as well as, you know, what liquid should we put in the cup?
Do people ever go wildly against your advice because they've got such they've heard something for so long, some misinformation, and they go, yeah, but I've been told this is the right thing to do. No, seriously, we're going to go for that, despite what you say.
No.
Everyone's just happy to go, right, you know what you're talking about, let's do it.
I mean, yeah, it makes me sound really like...
No, that's fortunate. Me and Sam don't always have that.
I've had people, you know, kind of asking, being like, but I have heard about this. And I can generally sit down and go, okay, well, tell me why you think that's a good idea. And they'll tell me why they think it's a good idea. And oftentimes, you know, it's a case of the information that they have doesn't, when they start listing it out, it doesn't 100% stack up.
You almost get people to admit, it's like a good, almost like a psychology tip, isn't it? Get people to admit, when you go, why do you think it's going to work? And all of a sudden they have to listen to themselves and go, wow, I do sound like a bit of a dipshit here, don't I?
So it's partially that, or it's partially they've been told something that's either years and years out of date, or it's just wildly inaccurate. And I can say, okay, well, on that point, this is what that would actually do. And they go, okay. And they can, I'm like, get your phone out, Google it, like, crack on. Like, I'm telling you what it is right now. There's been once where someone's gone, but what about this? And I've gone, okay, I'll go away and look at it because I'm not 100% sure. And it wasn't the right thing for them. And when you're in the room and you're like, I'm 95% sure that this is not the right thing, but I'll check. But I think I'm quite happy to admit when I'm wrong. It luckily doesn't happen very often. And if it does happen, I'll get it fixed. Basically. And that's usually, you get your report, which has all of the, like, this is what we talked about. This is why, it's called the reasons why ladder, actually. And it's listing out, these are your objectives, and this is why we're doing what we're doing, because it hits these objectives in these ways. And it kind of creates a nice circle. So you get that document, assuming everyone's happy and assuming you haven't changed your mind about something, or everything kind of stacks up in the way you want it to stack up, then you would move on to the implementation page, which is basically where everyone signs everything they need to sign. We're still quite old-fashioned. We like wet signatures in finance. And then I would, more often than not, I go away and I set everything up for you. I get it set up correctly, and then let you know it's all set up. And 12 months hence, we'll have another meeting and I'll let you know that, everything's good to go. And if you need me in the meantime, you've got my number and you've got my email address and you've got my social handles.
We're set up, we're done, we wait.
Pretty much. And that's the thing, like, if investing is exciting, you're doing it wrong.
That's trading.
It's supposed to be boring. It's supposed to be, some years it'll be like, oh, and some years it'll be like, yay. But it doesn't matter until you get where you need to be. And it all averages out.
I was going to say, is it because obviously, things drop, things rise. Do you have to go for like 10-year plans with people or 20-year plans and stuff like that? Because some things will dip for a long time and it's like, and people get scared. And you have to sort of let them know in advance, like, this is normal, this is going to happen. And you obviously, like you say, you don't have a crystal ball. You couldn't have predicted COVID, for example.
Well, this is the thing, like, everyone, like, post-COVID, everyone was like, what if the market drops? I'm like, I think it took less than a year for COVID to recover. The financial crisis obviously took significantly longer, but like, when you look at the markets peak to peak, it doesn't take as long as you think it does for markets to recover, because for markets, what markets don't like is the unexpected. So, it didn't like Brexit because no one thought we were coming out of Europe. It didn't like it. But then the world kept happening and markets continued to fall and they continued to rise. And it was like, oh, status quo, fine, whatever. So as soon as, like, when things are boring, everything's level. It's when things start happening that investments start moving. So it's generally less about what actually happened and more about what you perceive to have happened. So normally I can just pull out a chart and be like, yeah, but that was COVID. And look, it went doing. Or that was the financial crisis and it went doing. And it's when you panic and you come out at the bottom, that's when you have the problem.
Got you. So basically you want to be bored when you're investing.
You want to not look at it. As long as you're invested correctly, as long as you have a plan and it's the right strategy and, you're reviewing it often enough, ignore it. Generally, like...
Just somewhere better to put your money that you don't need for your day-to-day.
If you should have an emergency fund that's going to cover your expenses for 3 to 6 months, just in case you were to not be able to go to work or the boiler was to blow up. I won't talk to anyone until they at least have a plan as to how they're getting that. Because that needs to be your first thing. If you're telling me that you want to buy a house in the next 3 years, and all of your money's going towards that, then you don't need me. If within 5 years we're probably not investing it. The reason for that is generally over five years you generally see positive returns on average, and that's why we look at longer term sort of things. So you need your emergency fund. It's any money you don't need in the next 5 years. And if you basically tell me that you're going to be keeping the lights on, you're eating your ramen and you're not leaving the house, I'm probably going to tell you need something a little bit more than that, because that's not realistic to be maintained. Except for the ramen, because ramen's great.
Got you. I'll tell you what, we'll finish there. Really enjoyed that chat, and I genuinely learned a lot.
Good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me.